Schwierking. This is Ashton, Holland, Clare, Hart, and John Dickens, and we are going to be looking at the difference between, the cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin.
To begin this, we have to define what is money. Typically, we think of money as a physical and tangible thing, like a dollar bill or a euro. But according to Merriam-Webster, there are three key criteria. The first of which is something that is generally accepted as a medium of exchange. The second is as a measure of value. Thirdly, it must be widely accepted as a means of payment. Bitcoin fails to meet all three of these criteria and only meets two of them. This leads to our research question. Can cryptocurrencies ever be established and widely used? Now the same as we're.
So what is a Bitcoin? A Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer electronic cash that you can trade without having a trusted third party. So why should you care? Bitcoins allow you to have no transaction fees if you were to make a transaction to your friend. This happens through the algorithm that does all of the verifications throughout the system. This system does not take any cut of the money that you make a transaction through because any transaction through which a third party would. Now on to John Dickens with the obstacles that Bitcoin faces.
Sam? As Sam stated, there are many obstacles that Bitcoin faces in order to become a global currency, as its creator Satoshi Nakamoto imagined. One of these obstacles is creating trust within the system. In order for people to be able to widely use and accept Bitcoin, they have to trust that this is a secure and safe environment. And to create trust, we have to ensure security. Security is the main reason why someone would ever invest in something. If they're going to put their money in something, they're going to make sure that they can get that money back. And that's what we have to ensure in order to have Bitcoin become money. So how do we create security? Regulation. That's the key to be able to have Bitcoin become widely established. Laws put in place by the government to regulate the exchanges that take your money in exchange for Bitcoin need to have laws protecting the consumer. Because if you protect the consumer, you're going to establish security with them and therefore create their trust. So how do we regulate cryptocurrencies? One specific way to do this is as a commodity, which would mean something like gold, where Bitcoin would be a good that you can have and you could trade it with someone if you wanted. And there are already many regulations in place that would easily deal with Bitcoin and ensure its security. However, many regulations put in place to deal with property and taxing cannot fully understand Bitcoin's value because it has no intrinsic value. It's not a tangible object like most commodities. And that's where this form of regulation will fail. And that leads into the second school of thought, which is regulating it as a currency. Now in this case, Bitcoin, its role in the economy is similar because it has no intrinsic value and only represents the goods that you have that can be traded. And that's something that Bitcoin does have. However, cryptocurrencies are stable in nature, while Bitcoin is known for its volatility. That's a key when discussing how Bitcoin can become a currency, because let's say you have 2 Bitcoin one day, you're saving up to buy a TV. You go to the store the next day, and the price of Bitcoin drops and you only have 1.9, and you don't have enough to buy the TV. That's the problem that Bitcoin faces. So, in order to fully regulate Bitcoin, we'd have to come up with a whole new school of thought on how to regulate. And this would have to include some sort of governing body created just to deal with Bitcoin, which would take lots of time, which is not on Bitcoin's side. Now to Clare to inspect the cultural aspects of Bitcoin.
Thank you, John. Since currently there is no oversight from an institution that determines the value of Bitcoin, it is not backed by anything. Its value is determined by the people who use it. The Bitcoin phenomenon has cultivated attention from mainstream society while serving a major function in the world's economy. Bitcoin in 2017 has been established as a legal currency in Japan. However, in other parts of the world, it hasn't been widely established. This can be due to the fact that it's too complex for some people to understand or to use. And because it is trustless, designed to be trustless, the responsibility falls on the users to be knowledgeable and educated on Bitcoin's properties and behaviors. From 2011 to 2013, the Silk Road, an illegal website for selling and purchasing drugs, only accepted Bitcoin as a method of payment. This was due to the fact that Bitcoin transactions remain anonymous. This greatly tarnished Bitcoin's reputation. During this illegal activity, an estimated $1.2 billion of transactions occurred. However, today, minimal accounts that occur on the Bitcoin network are explicitly illegal. Bitcoin has also attracted plenty of attention from media. With the enhanced popularity of Bitcoin on the internet, it has led to increasing demand and increasing price value. Media platforms have played an influential role of presenting technology to the general public as well as popularizing the concept of cryptocurrency. But with this has also spread uncertainty. Now on to Sam to discuss the economic ramifications of Bitcoin.
Thank you, Claire. So one of the main economic problems that Bitcoin faces is the volatility that Bitcoin comes with. So one of the main problems that are causing this volatility is that there is no critical mass that Bitcoin has of people to lay the foundation of this currency. So when people nowadays invest in Bitcoin, usually what's happening is they're shorting Bitcoin. So they're buying low and selling high and making small margins of profits in between, which is forcing Bitcoin to jump up hundreds of dollars, sometimes in hours. This Bitcoin has an unpredictable price and no fixed value, which creates a scare-away tactic that traders would want to use in order to buy Bitcoin. So, for example, gold hovers around the same mark consistently, so you know what you're going to get with gold. But with Bitcoin, as you can see here in 2012, it was less than $1, and most recently, it's gotten all the way up to over $18,000, and that jump throughout was very up and down, which creates a scare-away tactic for people that would want to purchase it. So another problem is that big banks and Bitcoins are kind of competing for the same people. So Bitcoin offers the decentralized system, so you don't have to make transaction fees, which theoretically could completely wipe out the big bank system. In order to combat this, big bank systems aren't allowing some cardholders to purchase Bitcoin through their money in their accounts, which even adds more volatility to the Bitcoin because it's not allowing more people to move over to the mass of the currency. Sometimes these big banks, in order to put dirt on the Bitcoins, if any implication happens in a cryptocurrency, they will exploit it and make it aware to everybody else and put dirt on Bitcoin's name in order for people to not purchase it. On to Ashton with the future of Bitcoin.
The future of Bitcoin is one of uncertainty because of its lack of leadership. Bitcoin was created by Satoshi Nakamoto, and he has since only published one paper, his white paper, that clarifies what he views as Bitcoin should be used, and has since led to reviews and other people that are conflicting because they read his paper and clarify it differently on Bitcoin to be used. Other cryptocurrencies, such as Ethereum and Ripple, have leaders that have been validating it and trying to get it clarified as a currency with the U.S. National Federal Reserve. And Bitcoin also seeks to solve the problem of national currencies. There are currently 180 currencies recognized by the United Nations, and this creates friction because the currencies have to be converted from one, such as the dollar bill, to the euro. And then banks, as a third party, can charge 10 to 20%, and this leads to friction and other things. Now I'm declaring on Dickens.
In conclusion, Bitcoin faces many obstacles, such as illicit trading, centralization of network, regulation, volatility, and anti-establishment. Due to this, Bitcoin faces serious hurdles to overcome. In our analysis, we have learned this. It is unwise to definitively say if Bitcoin will fail or succeed. What we can say is that there is a likely future in the blockchain.
As stated previously, Bitcoin faces a lot of obstacles in becoming a global currency. However, the technology behind it, blockchain, is something that we believe through our research is really going to be the answer. Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies probably will never be widely established and used as a form of currency. However, blockchain can be used as so much more. For example, Walmart and IBM have teamed up to create a blockchain which traces the product from farm to market in order to ensure that it's well used and safe for the consumer. For example, to understand how blockchain and Bitcoin can be separated, back in the early 2000s when Steve Jobs created the iPhone, he had no idea the amount of potential it could bring in the platform that it would be for so many other uses such as social media, Instagram, Snapchat. The same is true with blockchain. It's just a basis for which so many different innovations can come about. And that's what we feel is going to be the future of cryptocurrencies and the cryptography behind it. Thank you.
since you ended, let's start with you. Reflecting on your colleagues' work, which one had the greatest impact on your overall understanding of the problem you were identified?
Well, I think Sam Schwierking's perspective really applied the most to our situation, since Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are pretty much from an economic perspective to begin with. His analysis of the volatility of cryptocurrencies and the fact that big banks really don't want this to occur really drive our conclusion that Bitcoin really won't be able to succeed in the way that most people think it can. And that's really where we decided to end in the first place. And throughout the entire process, we've realized that from an economic perspective, Bitcoin really is going to be, its cultural implications and regulated and future implications are all important, but its economic basis is really where the importance of it lies.
Thank you. Ashton, can you describe how the content of the team presentation was changed as a result of group discussion?
The content of our team presentation has changed, because originally we thought Bitcoin would be the future and possibly become a cryptocurrency, but then through our group gathering and our talking, we learned that there was too many challenges that Bitcoin is faced with, and that led us to determine that Bitcoin won't be the future, but actually blockchain will be the future and will be used eventually.
Thank you. Sam, describe an argument from one of your peers' individual reports that made you think differently about your team's solution or conclusion.
All right, thank you. Ashton he brought up in his paper the 21 million Bitcoin cap. We didn't include this, but it really helped me understand why they have the decentralized system and why that decentralized system won't last. So when Bitcoin reaches 21 million Bitcoins, the decentralized system will start to go away because Bitcoin miners, or the people that verify the transactions, receive a portion of the Bitcoin. So if there's 21 million Bitcoins, the people that are doing these transactions aren't getting the money from the transaction, but from like nothing. So when there's 21 million Bitcoins, there won't be any money to give to the miners, so they'll have to move back into a more centralized system, which will lead it more like the banks than what Mitaki Nashimoto intended for.
Thank you. All right, Claire, having finished your project, what, if anything, do you consider to be a gap in your team's research that, if addressed, would make you feel more confident about your conclusion?
Thank you. And to answer your question, I think because of time constraints, we have some limitations. But if we were able to add anything more, I think we would discuss the implications of the environment, and especially considering the miners who verify the transactions and how Bitcoin occurs. Basically, a lot of the transactions have consumed a ton of energy, that can be equated to small cities. And so we can further discuss and explore that topic of research and its effects on global warming. Thank you.
Thank you.